Hello everyone, I'm your host, The Comic Wraith. Welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to Character Chronicles, where we look at the characters' creation history and their most iconic stories. Today we'll be looking at the Dark Horse classic, The Mask. Created by Mike Richardson and Mark Badger under the name Mask, spelled with a Q, this version of The Mask was pitched to Dark Horse Comics and released in 1987 under the 10th installment of Dark Horse Presents. Unfortunately, I couldn't find anything other than this single image about this run, so we'll move on to the revamping of the character for Dark Horse's Mayhem #1. Written by John Acurdy and art by Doug Monco, respectively. This series would go on for a lengthy period, starting with, well, The Mask, followed by The Mask Returns, The Mask Strikes Back, The Hunt for Green October, Southern Discomfort, Toys in the Attic, and after a 20-year break, the most recent mainline entry debuting in 2020, I Pledge Allegiance to The Mask. We'll be covering just the initial run today, and with all of that out of the way, here is The Mask. What would you do if the rules of cartoons applied to you? Well, that happened to Stanley Ipkiss, a meek man who buys an antique mask for his girlfriend Catherine. Before he can get to her though, he's pushed around and belittled by a gang of bikers. Afterwards, he fantasizes about terrorizing everyone who's ever screwed him over. As he's fantasizing though, a voice calls out to him, one that seems... Stanley is understandably confused by this voice, but he chalks it up to a hallucination due to the stress of the day. He arrives at his girlfriend Catherine's apartment, and while she's happy to see him, he's apparently been a little lousy with showing up for things. But regardless, she loves the mask and adds it to her collection of antiques, stating it's perfect. She rewards Stanley with a less than subtle reward, and it must be good, because according to these speech bubbles, he's all tuckered out. As he makes his way to the bathroom where he's startled by the mask appearing on the toilet in front of him, he thinks the joke is rather quite amusing and decides to play one on her back. But what he doesn't know is that this will change everything. As Stanley dons the mask, it wraps itself around his head, and the mask is born. Following this new energy, Stanley goes about the town wondering just how powerful he is. He picks a fight with some guys on the street. He throws a punch and hurts his hand punching the lamppost. Reeling in pain, he wanders into the street, but just as he realizes the danger he's in, he's flattened by an oncoming car. Now, of course, if that's where it ended, I wouldn't be doing this video. Like a cartoon character, he springs back up, marveling at how he's unscathed. He decides the next logical course of action is to get payback on the bikers who attacked him. Later at their clubhouse, the bikers meet a man dressed in a pink tux. They call him a fruit, to which the man responds by ripping his face off. Revealing the mask underneath, he kisses the biker before brutally murdering everyone using cartoon logic. After burning down the clubhouse, he returns to Kathy's apartment. The next morning, Kathy wakes up and tries to join Stan in the bathroom. However, when she opens the door, she's terrified to see the mask. In fear, she shuts the door, and Stan opens it asking if she's alright. She tries to explain, but Stan blows it off and gaslights her into thinking she's imagining things. A bit of time progresses, with names being crossed off of a list, Stan now wearing army fatigues and adopting a really shitty attitude. He argues with Kathy, and she calls out his new behavior, citing this weird sudden obsession with guns. In anger, Stan goes to hit Kathy, but stops in a moment of clarity. He takes the mask and leaves. Later, two mechanics are discussing the day of profit, including ripping people off by sabotaging their cars and saying it was found on inspection. They laugh about it, especially remembering just how much they explicitly ripped off Stan. The timing, however, could not be worse, as the mask arrives, holding a muffler. However, we'll have to come back to them, as we see a classroom where a student is struggling to spell the word tuberculosis. Stan's old childhood teacher, Mrs. Gazzo, is leading the class and berating the child. The mask arrives and promptly stumps her goddamn head in, as he makes his way back home, removing the mask and falling asleep. Kathy returns and decides to take the mask, tossing it into the garbage. The next morning, Stan asks where it is. Kathy reveals she threw it out and begs Stan to see reason. The mask is changing him, and he seemingly comes around. But not enough, it would seem, as he finds it extremely hilarious when the mangled bodies of the mechanics are on the news. Kathy's had enough, and promptly breaks up with him and tosses him out. Later that night, Stan is rummaging through Kathy's trash, trying to find the mask. It's revealed Kathy's actually kept the mask the whole time, and Stan tries to break into her apartment to steal it back. The window falls on him during, though, causing him to let out a scream, waking her. She calls the police and gets ready to defend herself. She grabs a lamp and smashes it over Stan's head, knocking him out. Realizing it is Stan, she hides him away from the police and tries to get rid of them. However, Stan finds the mask, and this leads to the book's major third act, where Stan, now dubbed the Big Head Killer, goes on a rampage, killing police and wreaking havoc all over with twisted cartoon logic. Wisecracking along the way, Big Head murders and destroys everywhere across the city. He drives through a grocery store and on the sidewalks before crashing the car into a wall. Using Toon logic though, he reappears with a flamethrower and machine gun, decimating the police. Growing bored, he retreats to Stan's old apartment, deciding to skip town. He removes a mask to pack before a gun goes off, killing Stan, as Kathy, now wearing the mask, decides to take matters into her own hands. Later on, Kathy meets with Detective Kellaway, the lead investigator on the Big Head case. She gives him the mask, saying it was a cause for all the mayhem. She warns him that wearing the mask is incredibly dangerous. Kellaway's confused, but he says he won't wear it. Later that night, he takes it home and wonders what the big deal really is. Deciding to ignore Kathy's warnings, Kellaway puts the mask on, and just like that, Big Head has returned. Kellaway is astounded, noting his broken arm is healed and remembering just how much punishment Big Head could take, tries out his new durability, starting with a hammer and ending with a gunshot. Marveling at his new power, Kellaway considers telling his captain about this discovery, but that idea quickly goes out the window as he decides to employ his own forms of justice. We go to a convenience store that's being robbed by two thugs. They kill the poor woman and plan to make a getaway to find their driver claiming the car won't start. They pop the hood to see Big Head. He says he thinks it's the carburetor. He encourages him to take a look and smashes the getaway's driver's head into the engine before shrugging off an array of bullets. He chases after the thugs. After a while, they seemingly manage to lose him. Or so they thought. As he appears again, offering to give them balloon animals in the forms of a giraffe, a French poodle, and finally, a Tommy gun. Before he blows them all to bits. The next day, Kellaway arrives at work, chipper as ever, his arm back in a sling, likely to not arouse suspicion. He calls Kathy to reassure her she has nothing to worry about as the captain enters to deliver some bad news. The police force are letting go of a high-profile drug dealer, as the heroin lodged as evidence has gone missing. Kellaway is understandably enraged at this development, and he takes his frustrations out on the criminal element. Later on, as Big Head, he stops a truck jacking by throwing a thug around by his hair and flinging him through a window, before singing Sinatra to the truck owner. Elsewhere, in an even worse part of town, we see an addict named Lank waiting for his dealer, when a man named Rapaz, the dealer the police let off earlier, shows up terrifying Lank. He runs off but doesn't get far before running into Walter, Rapaz's muscle. Walter holds Lank down whilst Rapaz offers him free, high-quality horse. Rapaz orders Walter to hold him steady. The next day, Kellaway and his partner Lionel see the coroner to find Lank, who has died of an overdose. Kellaway is convinced Rapaz is behind it. As they leave the office, DA assistant Steve Lister is there to give them a warning. A warning to steer clear, as well as to see the DA, as Rapaz's initial arrest was seemingly unlawful. Kellaway, frustrated, arrives home, deciding to once again take matters into his own hands. As Big Head gets ready for the night, he gets an unexpected phone call from Kathy, who is calling because she keeps reading about the vigilante that looks similar to Big Head, and is worried about the potential dangers. Kellaway reassures her that the previous Big Head was Stan, and Stan was a scumbag, and that whoever this new vigilante is couldn't be Big Head, and is more likely a copycat with better intentions. With that, Kathy seemingly is reassured as Big Town heads out for a night on the town. We see Rapaz in a heated discussion with a man. Rapaz is denying he's a dealer to the man, but he pulls a gun, demanding some of his product. Before anything can be done though, Walter comes up behind the man and throws him across the street. The man is shockingly unhurt as he gets up. Rapaz orders Walter to kill him, and Walter hits him, knocking out some of the man's skin, revealing a face that's green underneath. Big Head pulls a gun and unloads it into Walter's stomach. As he goes to confront Rapaz, however, Walter grabs him by the ankle and throws him around like a rag doll. He continuously throws Big Head around before taking the gun and shooting him square in the head. Of course, this being Big Head, his only complaint is now blood is now all over his nice white suit. Walter, now annoyed, punches Big Head so hard he goes into a lamppost and breaks it. Big Head, seizing the moment, takes the now exposed wires and electrocutes Walter, beating him. Big Head then sets his sights on Rapaz, as an unseen man sees it all go down. Big Head manages to corner Rapaz in an alley, pointing a gun at him. When he pulls the trigger, however, a light ignites from the hammer, and he lights a cigarette with it. He jokes with Rapaz, saying he'd love to stay and chat, but he's gotta go, leaving his cigarette on the ground. As he leaves, Rapaz notices a faint ticking noise, as the cigarette detonates, leaving nothing left of him. The next morning, after repeated attempts, Lionel calls Kellaway, explaining that Rapaz is dead. Kellaway tells him he's not interested in the case, but Lionel tells him he has to be, as the police are certain it's Big Head. Kellaway asks how they know, and Lionel tells him they have a witness. The press swarm the DA's office as the news of Kellaway being involved in Rapaz's release and murder are swarming. Kellaway enters brashly, demanding to know what's going on. District Attorney Tully assures Kellaway that there's no charges or formal investigation. Kelly asks why they aren't talking to the officer who's in charge of evidence the day it went missing. Tully explains that they are, but didn't want it public, and they don't know who leaked Kellaway's involvement, even though Kellaway is certain it was Lister. Back at the police HQ, the captain calls in Kellaway, telling him the witness will only meet with one cop alone at a certain time. The captain thinks if Kellaway does it, it'll help clear his name. Elsewhere, mobsters Don Mozzo and David Bonavilli are meeting and discussing the power vacuum of Rapaz's death and Walter's disappearance. The boss rules out Kellaway as a suspect, believing him to be too by the book to do it. The boss decides to go after rival mobster Cincini and sends men to attack him at his restaurant. At the same time, Big Head meets with the witness in an attempt to intimidate him into not talking. He easily manages to convince him and decides to clean up the city as much as he can in one long night, full of vengeance, mayhem, and terror. And while the night is eventful, the next morning, Kellaway arrives to work drained and run down. Lionel catches him, warning him the captain is furious. Kellaway decides to meet him, but before he can, the captain comes outside himself, asking why the witness never showed up, accusing Kellaway of intimidating him. Kellaway says he never even showed up. The captain decides that somebody intimidated and concludes that somebody is Big Head. He also assigns both Kellaway and Lionel to investigate him. Kellaway, for obvious reasons, objects to this, stating the massacre Stanley went on, costing him too many good men. The captain dismisses his claim, chalking it up to cowardice. This enrages Kellaway, causing Kellaway to really go off and give him a piece of his mind. This, however, causes the captain to send Kellaway home without pay. On the way home, however, Kellaway tunes into the news where the mafia has instigated a hostage situation at Cincini's restaurant. Kellaway arrives on the scene and surrenders himself in an attempt to gain entry. Once he's inside and out of their sight, Big Head comes out to save the day, killing the mobsters with a poisonous chocolate cake and bullfighting, defeating the last two by simply standing in between them as they let loose the shotgun slugs. Kellaway leaves the restaurant to praise from the press, and a little later the captain arrives. Kellaway gets ready for the adoration, but is met with vitriol at his actions. The captain is furious with Kellaway, and on the orders of the mayor, tells Kellaway he expects his resignation ASAP. Kellaway returns home, distraught that his career is over. He doesn't have a lot of time to be sad though, as Kathy is there demanding the mask back. They talk in his office, and he apologizes for lying about his use of the mask, saying he was only trying to clean up the city. Kathy explains that despite his intentions, the mask alters your judgment, and the mask is too dangerous, to which Kellaway offers a solution. He offers a partnership arrangement. He'll lock away the mask, and Kathy will have the only key, meaning he'll have to get her approval to get the mask in a situation that he feels calls for it. Kathy is unsure, but he sees his logic, so she reluctantly agrees. Elsewhere in the city, two officers are stopping at a diner for lunch, before a mobster gets thrown through the window by a returning Walter. Bonneville tries to explain that it was his mistake for putting a hit on Walter before pulling his own gun on him. Walter grabs his head and repeatedly slams it into the diner counter, reducing his head to a bloody mass, before the police arrive and arrest Walter without a fight. A week passes, and Kellaway arrives at the police HQ to collect his things, where he apologizes to Lionel for his behavior earlier, to which Lionel forgives, and clues Kellaway on a tip about Steve Lister following Bonneville's murder, who we then see getting Walter an extremely light sentence for killing a man and assaulting another. We join Kathy returning home and checking her messages. She hears Kellaway where he's angry, asking he call them back, in hopes she'll give him the mask. Kathy calls him back, but it's too late, as we see an axe embedded in the desk the mask was locked away in. We see Lister getting into his car to head home for the night. As he's fiddling with cassette tapes, however, we see Big Head appear at his window before breaking it and dragging him out of the car. He drags him back to his office, but not before an officer sees him and reports Big Head's resurgence. Big Head throws Lister through his office door window and compliments it before ransacking the office. Lionel and the captain arrive and they start demanding Big Head's surrender, to which Big Head blows them off, eventually finding Lister's safe containing a lot of his private documents. Meanwhile, we see Don Mazzo is made aware of the situation, but decides to leave Lister out to dry, stating the next assistant DA will probably be cheaper to bribe. Back at the DA office, we see Lionel leading the charge, but as they enter, Big Head is gone, and Lister is tied and gagged. The contents out for all to see, including the heroin that went missing and the bribe money Lister took. As they arrest Lister, Big Head shows to accept credit and praise. This, however, is met with the captain ordering every available cop to shoot Big Head dead. Annoyed at their lack of gratitude, he pulls out the Ipkiss Special with a massive axe. The police scatter as Lionel and his captain retreat to their car. Big Head splits it in half, halting them. The captain flees in terror, but Lionel puts up a fight, asking if he's man enough. This touches a nerve with Big Head, who starts pummeling Lionel, beating him harder and harder, putting a stick of dynamite in his mouth. Before he lights it though, Kellaway's free will comes through. Big Head tries to retake control, but Kellaway's conscience holds him off just enough to spare Lionel and get away. Later that night, Kathy is once again at Kellaway's door, this time demanding the mask, stating no one can be trusted with it, and she'll hide it where no one can find it. However, Kellaway beats it to the punch as he buries the mask in his basement, covering it with cement. And that was Dark Horse's The Mask. There are many sequel books as well as many spin-offs, but there was so much I couldn't possibly cover in one video. If you want a part 2, let me know and I'll be more than happy to get to it. Yeah, The Mask is one of my favorite books of like older, grittier art. I particularly love just how bloody and kind of mean-spirited it is. For recommended reading, I highly recommend the original Omnibus as well as the second one. That's all I really have for today. Support us on Patreon. The next video is something I really want to do. I'm so sorry this one took so long to come out. I had a lot of stuff happening I couldn't get around, and I'm finally coming back, and I'm finally like really gonna try and go harder. If you're going to conventions, I'll be at Supernova this year. At the release of this video, it's tomorrow though, so I'm not really sure. Yeah. Anyway, that's all we have for you today. Stay safe, stay true, stay you. I've been your host, the Comic Wraith. Later.